Clara's 60-year-old fingers trembled around battered novel thrust into her hands by a stranger outside Waterstones. Middlemarch, same edition she'd shared with Jim before cancer stole him mid-chapter. Coincidence? London drizzle blurred her vision, but that sticky note tucked inside was unmistakable. Book fam meets Tuesdays. Bring biscuits, not tears. Her chest tightened. Grief had turned her into a hermit, but this smelled like a plot twist. A chance to swap stories instead of sorrow. Clara clutched book. Clara's 60-year-old fingers trembled around battered novel thrust into her hands. Wuthering Heights, same edition she'd clutched during chemo years ago, spine cracked where tears had warped pages. Now, standing in a Bloomsbury bookshop's backroom, mismatched armchairs smelling of Earl Grey and old paper, she fought urge to bolt. Grief had carved hollows under her ribs, but this? A book club for broken-hearted. Might as well wear a sign, clumsy widow seeks pity. She almost tripped over a stack of donated paperbacks, classic Clara move, but a woman with neon-framed glasses steadied her. Newbies pick first for swap, she said, nudging a crate labeled take one, leave one. Inside, paperbacks bore sticky notes. This got me through divorce, read when hope feels fake. Clara's throat tightened. Her husband had hated fiction, called it faffy make-believe, but here were strangers wearing scars like dog-eared pages, unafraid to say this story held me together. She hesitated, then slid her own relic into crate, water-stained, margin notes in shaky cursive. Letting go felt like unlatching a window long painted shut. Around her, laughter bubbled as someone joked about misery memoirs being their cardio. Clara's chuckle surprised her, rusty but real. Maybe grief wasn't a locked room. Maybe it was a library, every shelf whispering me too, fam. By night's end, she left clutching a sci-fi novel, Aliens. Less depressing than Probate, note said, and something lighter beneath her sternum. Not hope, not yet. But quiet thrill of a next chapter. Clara's 60-year-old fingers trembled around battered novel thrust into her hands, its spine cracked like ache in her knees after too long standing. Waterstones had been an accident, she'd meant to buy marmalade next door, but display table snagged her, community book swap, grief and healing. A sign too loud to ignore. She hadn't read fiction since Henry died. Cookbooks, yes, their splattered pages proof she still fed herself. But stories? Too risky. They demanded she feel things. Yet here she was, clutching some stranger's dog-eared copy of Guernsey Literary and Potato Pure Pie Society, its margins scribbled with notes in looping ink. A previous owner had underlined, "We clung to books," with such fervor paper had torn. Clara's throat tightened. A woman with silver braids and a name tag reading Mags, host materialized beside her. First swap. Mag's grin was conspiratorial, like they were both in on a joke she didn't yet get. Before she could bolt, a paperback was pressed into her palm, something about a librarian who solves crimes. Take this too. Lightens load. Meetings turned into rituals. Tuesdays meant mismatched armchairs in shop's back corner, where Mag's crew dissected metaphors with biscuit crumbs on their sweaters. There was Priya, who snorted sad bits to Balance Universe, and Jean, who brought homemade scones but refused to share recipes. Trade secrets, love, creator learned to laugh when her tea sloshed over spoilers, to nod when someone called Middlemarch, peak drama, fam. Months in, she brought Henry's old Captain Corelli's mandolin, its cover sun-bleached from Spain, hands steadier now, she placed it on swap shelf. For next Lost Sailor, she whispered. Mags caught her eye, winked. No grand speech, just a fresh stack of post-its slid her way. By spring, woman-led mystery section. She'd learned to bend plots like pastry dough, predictable twists. Not on her watch. Regulars flocked to her picks, and when shop hosted a literary night, it was her idea to hide book clues in jam jars. Eat your way to enlightenment. Grief hadn't vanished. But between suspect red herrings and Jean's infamous lemon drizzle, Clara found something else, a chorus of voices, dogged and defiant, turning pages together. Clara's 60-year-old fingers trembled around battered novel thrust into her hands by a stranger community book swap. Spine cracked, pages yellowed, some tragedy had dogged chapter 12. She almost laughed. Grief had its own bookmark too, always flipping her back to that same raw paragraph. But this wasn't just some musty relic, it was an invitation. London's drizzle blurred bookshop window as she eyed event board, Third Thursday Book Club, new members welcome. A flyer curled edges, stubborn as she herself. She'd spent months cocooned in her flat, ignoring well-meaning fam who suggested hobbies like knitting or, God help her, pickleball. But books? Books had been Jim's thing. Picking one up felt like trespassing. Yet here she was, shoving doubt aside with same determination she'd used to wrestle stubborn jar lids. She paid for novel, Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, and scrawled her name on sign-up sheet. Ink bled into paper. No take-backs. First meeting loomed. Woman arrived early, clutching her book like a shield. Chairs circled in shop's back room, mismatched as attendees. A woman in a neon scarf waved her over. We're all refugees from some storm or other, she said, nodding novel. Clara's throat tightened. Maybe this was life raft she hadn't known she needed. Months passed. Stories became currency, dogged paperbacks traded like contraband, each one a confession. She read about loss, yes, but also resilience. Joy tucked between pages like forgotten receipts. One evening, she brought Jim's favorite, Remains of Day. Letting it go hurt less than she'd feared. Someone else would carry it forward. By summer, Clara organized a book swap local library. Strangers became regulars, regulars became fam. Grief hadn't vanished, but it had company now. And that old novel? Still on her shelf, Spine Priest chapter 12, a reminder that some stories weren't meant to be read alone. Clara's 60-year-old fingers trembled around battered novel thrust into her bag months ago, spine cracked like her heart after losing James. Today, sunlight hit its gold-lettered title just right, Unbearable Lightness of Being, and something clicked. Not a whisper, not a nudge, but a full throttle do it now ringing in her ears. She marched into Primrose Hill Books, novel held high like a torch. Community book swap, she announced to startled Clark, for folks who've lost someone. Bring stories that hurt. Leave with ones that heal. Clark blinked. Regulars glanced up from lattes. Skeptical woman in leopard print scarf, local busybody, famous for scoffing touchy-feely nonsense, rolled eyes so hard they nearly stuck. She ignored them. She cleared a shelf by window, plopped down novel, and scrawled on scrap paper, Grief's Book Club. First rule, no rules. Second, bring snacks. A chuckle bubbled up. James would have loved that. By noon, 5 books appeared beside hers. By closing, 20. Leopard scarf woman lingered, arms crossed, until, with dramatic sigh, she slapped down dogged wild swans. Don't get emotional, she muttered, but she spotted red-rimmed eyes. Next week, shop was packed. Word had spread like gossip of Vicar's tea. Someone snapped a photo, silver-haired woman grinning, arms wide, shelf overflowing, and by evening, Grief's Book Club trended. Emails flooded in from Liverpool to Louisiana. How do you know I needed this? Creator laughed, dusting flour off hands. She'd baked scones, some were lopsided. Novel still sat center shelf, now bookmarked with sticky notes strangers had scribbled on. One read, thanks, fam. This is my start too. Leopard scarf woman returned, this time with tiramisu. Fine, she grumbled, "You're onto something." Crowd erupted, not cheers, but that warm, rumbling hum of souls recognizing light after too long in dark. Clara winked. "Told you snacks were key." Clara's 60-year-old fingers trembled around that battered novel thrust into her hands months ago, its spine cracked like her heart after losing James. But grief, she'd learned, wasn't a solo read. It demanded footnotes, margin scribbles, a chorus of voices saying me too. So she turned her Thursday book club into something wilder, a community book swap where dog-eared paperbacks became lifelines. Strangers traded stories with paperbacks, bonding over broken spines and underlines left by souls who'd also loved, lost, and needed reminding that joy still lurked in chapter breaks. London's damp streets couldn't dampen buzz inside that indie bookshop's back room, where Clara, rocking mismatched socks, her signature quirk, guided new members through grief's messy plot twists. A young mum clutched a memoir, tear-streaked but grinning. A silver-haired gent chuckled over a sticky note left in his thriller. "This villain's weak, you're stronger." Even Shop's ancient Persian cat, Mr. Puddlesworth, loafed atop Healing Reed's pile like a furry paperweight. Months in, Clara spotted her old novel, now stuffed with rainbow taps, coffee stains, the doodle of a phoenix, being passed to a widow gripping its cover like a life raft. Growth, she mused, wasn't just turning pages but letting them go, letting stories stitch hearts back together. By year's end, her club had spun off 3 more across city, each a beacon for fractured souls craving connection. Grief didn't end, but it softened, reshaped by shared narratives and oddball fam who showed up, week after week, armed with paperbacks and hope. Clara's mismatched socks became a running joke, her laugh a constant reminder. Even saddest stories need sequels. Grab a book, pass it on. Your story's next chapter starts now.